Hey guys, Rugby here. With the Super Rugby Pacific season 3/4 in, I thought why not give you guys my early prediction for the Wallabies for their opening test against the Lions. Again, this is what I believe, the Wallabies could shape up as, but really it's more what I think, Joe Schmidt will go with as well. I think, you kind of have a combination of the both and just kind of what players have kind of had a good season so far as well. So that's something which I've kept in mind. I think the only restriction which I've kind of given myself is that I wasn't allowed to select any players offshore, so I couldn't select the likes of Corbetti, Samu Karevi, Will Skelton. I just couldn't select players like them just because I think Joe Schmidt is going to go really more into kind of selecting players from an Australian point of view. So that's kind of something which I've taken in mind as well. But yeah, before we get into this, guys, make sure, guys, to click the like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below, guys. Let me know your predictions in terms of what you believe the starting 15, as well as, kind of, the 23-man squad could be for the opening test against the Lions. So with the front row then, this is where I decided to go with likes of Angus Bell, number 1, Matt Fazel, number 2, and then Alana Toa at number 3. I think these three have been, I'd say the standouts, I'd say, within their positions throughout this year. Again, there are a few players who've had a good season, I'd say, particularly the Western Force, because, there's been Pierce as well as Tom Robertson who's had a good season. But I think these three are probably going to be, the front row that we'll see within the opening test against the Lions. Angus Bell, he's had a pretty good season. It's been pretty consistent for the Waratahs. Waratahs have been a bit, kind of up and down this year, but really with Angus Bell, he's kind of done pretty well for them so far, and particularly from a scrummaging point of view, he's looked pretty good on that front. So that's the reason why he's there. Matt Fassler, again, he hasn't been on the try-scoring form to what we saw last year, but I just think his reliability for the Reds has just been key, and he's come up at kind of a big times really for them. I mean, the only other player I was really considering was really between him and Billy Pollard. I think those two have been the standouts, I'd say, from the Australian side. Even, Nick Doley and Brandon Pekamosa for the Western Force, but I just think Matt Fazer is going to be the likely one to be chosen here, and I think he looked pretty good throughout the Autumn Nations, and I think he's kind of continued that throughout the Super P season. So I think Matt Fazer is the guy I'm going to go with, and then with Alan Atoa, I think he's probably been the player who's had the best season, I'd say, out of the three in terms of at least in terms of that kind of front row there. I mean, he's been really good for the Brumbies this year. I mean, front row has been really good, with James Slipper as well as Billy Pollard. So I think he has to get in, and he has experience under his belt as well. So he's just another, he's just a key player to kind of have within that front row. Yeah, well, for the locks then, this is where I decided to go with the likes of Nick Frost alongside Jeremy Williams. And again, this is a big call because I think the big discussion will be if you go with the likes of Darcy Swain and Jeremy Williams to start in that test because they've been really good together for the Western Force throughout this year. I mean, Darcy Swain has been excellent because I think he has like the most line-out steals actually in the competition. So he's had a very good year, but I just think you can't ignore Nick Frost. I think he's just such a good kind of player for the Wallabies, and he's had a good season actually for the Brumbies as well. So I think he's just someone who I just think has to get in. He is probably the number one choice, I think, for the Wallabies in terms of locking spots. So he has to get in. And then for Jeremy Williams, I just think he's been very consistent throughout this year. Like I said, alongside that partnership with Darcy Swain, I think he's had a pretty good season for the Western Force. So I think that's the combination we've seen also for the Wallabies played throughout the Autumn Nations. So I think they'll continue that throughout for the opening test against the Lions. For the loose forward trio, then, this is where I decided to go with Rob Valentini at number 6, Fraser McWright at number 7, and then Harry Wilson at number 8. So again, this is going to be a huge debate. I think one of the biggest areas of debate, really, in terms of this selection, because the big one is the number 7 jersey. I'll go straight to the point because it is really between Fraser McWright and Carlos Tizano, and Tizano has been incredible this year. Like, he has been incredible. I mean, he's really got 11 tries, which is it's actually remarkable saying that, and we're only we're kind of past 11 rounds now, but still, it's he's going to probably break the record. He could definitely break the record for most tries in this season. So yeah, Tizano's been excellent. But then you just have someone like Fraser McWright, who the reason why he's always been selected is because he's so all rounded in terms of kind of from an attacking point of view, but also within the breakdown. But I would say Tizano's really kind of exceeded in that kind of attacking point of view because that was kind of the thing that kind of would put him against him really against Fraser McWright because Fraser McWright was just more all rounded, like I said. So, and Tizano is a really good jackler of the ball. So the Wallabies do have a tough decision there because both of them are, both of them I would say are all rounded now and can play that 7 jersey with ease. So, look, I mean, if there was some way I could put both of them in, I would. I mean, if you wanted to, you could shift Fraser McWright to the 6, maybe put Valentini at the 8. but and then put Dazon at the 7. But I just think Fres McWright just edges it for me. I mean, he's just so reliable. And again, that chemistry with Harry Wilson, particularly number 8, I think will be a key kind of point to add. And then yeah, Roll Valentini again. He wasn't available for the start of the season for the Brumbies, but since then he's actually been really good within the last kind of few games he's played for the Brumbies. So I think he's made an instant impact for them kind of since coming back. So he's definitely going to be a starter for the Wallabies without a doubt. It just depends if you want him at the 6 or 8 jersey, like I said. But either way, I think that's the loose forward trio I would go with. And I think that's what Joe Schmidt will kind of decide. Again, Schmidt will have a tough decision between Fres McWright and Carlos Tizano. Personally, I would still go with Fres McWright. I just think Tizano, like, you also have to think about it in terms of the bench impact as well. Who's going to be a better impact player? And I think Tizano will be a better impact player than Fres McWright. So that's another reason why. So with the 9-10 combination here, I've decided to go with Tate McDermott as well as Nolo Loseo. Look, he's been in discussion, Noah. I mean, of course, he's, kind of announced his move already off towards Japan, just, I believe, I thought it was going to be for a year, but actually he's going to be gone for a while, actually. So it's one of those where Joe Schmidt has to make a decision. Do you go with this guy because he's the best 10 you have, or do you go with someone else like Ben Donaldson or Tom Liner, who's actually been pretty good so far this year? Because both of them, I think both of those guys deserve that number 10 jersey. But the question is, with Joe Schmidt leaving at the end of the Rugby Championship, I mean, he has kind of freedom to kind of choose the team he wants to go with. But at the same time, you also think you have to think about the World Cup and what's best for the long-term future. I'm not sure if Joe Schmidt will think like that because, again, the Wallabies will have a new head coach by the time the Rugby Championship ends. So it's one of those where, players could switch around. So in my mind, I think Joe Schmidt will still go with Nolo Sale. I think that's what I believe. Again, I know he's kind of, he's not allowed Langley Gleeson and Tom Hooper to be available for the Wallabies back in the January kind of camp. But I think there's some players like, him, Leonard Cattell, who I'll discuss shortly, who I just think those players have to be within the Wallabies starting lineup. I just don't think you can take them out that easily. I mean, I know it's a bigger argument really for Loseo because you do have players like, Tom Lana and Ben Donaldson, who's both have had great seasons for their respective clubs. I just think Nolo Loseo is just he's such a good 10. I've always rated Nolo Loseo. I mean, I was so shocked that he didn't actually get to go to the World Cup in 2023 because I think that could have kind of changed the kind of whole story around him and kind of how the Wallabies would have done, in my opinion. But again, that's the past now. But with the 9-10, I mean, look, Tim McDermott, he's the certified 9 without a doubt. He's had an excellent season for the Reds. So that has to be the 9-10 combination, I think, for the Wallabies. Look, with the center combination, you have the likes of Leonard Cattell at 12 and then Joseph Akuso Swali at number 13. I think those two, I mean, we really saw it throughout the Autumn Nations. That is the combination I think Joe Schmidt will go with. And it's the likely one. I think that's the one I would also go with as well. There is players like Hunter Pasami, who he's looked good so far this year. I don't think he's been amazing, but he's had some good games in there, which has definitely kind of kept my eye. I think he'll still be a part of the Wallaby squad no matter what, Pasami. But I just don't know how much more he has to get, like how close he is in terms of kind of breaking into that kind of starting 15. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, there are other players. I mean, look, I know I said I'm not including players offshore, but Samu Karevi recently has been very, very good. I think he scored like 4 or 5 tries in the last like 6 games or something. So he's been in a good run so far, Karevi. So I think Joe Schmidt will definitely take notice of that. But just sticking to kind of Australia, I think that is the best combination you can go with Vikatau and Joseph Sway. So I think that's what you have to go with. I mean, I'm trying to think of another player. You have Billy Kunzel, who's someone who I've always appreciated, but again, he's been playing as an 11 since he's kind of come back into the Western Force. So I'm not sure if he'll be playing that 13 jersey like he was last year. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of players you can go with, guys. There's a lot of players. I mean, even like Josh Fluke is another player who I've always appreciated, but again, with that injury, it's kind of hindered his chances of kind of breaking into that kind of into that team, or particularly the starting XV. So yeah, look, I think that's the combination you have to go with in terms of the centers. And then, yeah, with the back three here, this is where I've decided to go with Dylan Peach at the number 11 jersey, Andrew Callaway at number 14, and then, yeah, Tom Wright at the number 15. And again, I think Tom Wright at the number 15 isn't easy. That's an easy just yes, without a doubt. Andrew Callaway is an interesting one because he hasn't had a remarkable season, really, since he's kind of transferred over towards the Waratahs, but he is just so good within a Wallabies jersey. That's the thing. He always kind of stands out for the Wallabies in that 14 jersey. So I just don't think you can really ignore him. I think the one that's really up for debate is really that 11 jersey, because I don't think there's been a certified 11 within Australia who's really stood up, because you have players like Max Jorgensen, Harry Potter. Who else is there? There's been, I mean, Jock Campbell's kind of switched in and out. There's who else is there? There's Lachlan Anderson. I mean, there's a few players, even like Filippo Dungadu, to be fair, is probably the other one. I mean, Filippo Dungadu probably has the best case, I'd say, when I think about it. But I just think Dylan Peach, he really impressed me throughout the opening few games. I know he's currently injured now, but he'll be available soon. I think he's the player that they have to go with. We didn't get to see too much of him within the Autumn Nations because again he wasn't available during that time because Max Jorgensen fitted within that role during then. But again, Max Jorgensen, he's out currently for the remainder of the season. So it's one of those where that really hinders his chances. I mean, again, Max Jorgensen was having an excellent campaign for what it was throughout the games he's playing. I just don't know if he'll be available in time. I mean, if he is, then it's hard to ignore him because he can play in that 11 jersey. Yeah, look, it's tough. I just think Dylan Peach is more of an all-rounded player, so that's the reason why I've gone with him in number 11. And then, yeah, with Andrew Kellaway and Tom Wright, I just think it's a balanced kind of back three you have there. So, yeah, that is the kind of the starting 15 that I've gone with there for the Wallabies. In terms of the bench, I know this is obviously just a starting 15 video, but why not give you guys a bench for what I believe kind of Joe Schmidt can go with here. I think he'll probably go with the likes of James Slipper, Billy Pollard off the bench in terms of the hooker spots. I think Tom Robinson could actually replace Talon Tupo in terms of the pecking order. I think he's in an excellent campaign for the Western Force, and I think Talon Tupo just hasn't. So I think that's the reason why I put him ahead of Talon Tupo. And then, yeah, with the rest of the bench, I've decided I think Joe Schmidt will go with a 6-2 to kind of counteract the kind of Lions bench. So I think he'll go with someone like Darcy Swain, who, again, I've said beforehand, is an excellent season for the Western Forest, most steals in terms of lineouts in the competition. And yeah, I think his discipline, again, that's been an issue in the past, but his discipline this year has been pretty good. So I think he has to get in. Then, yeah, with a number, kind of the next player, the next player is really a gamble. You can go with any person because you have players like, I mean, Luke Reimer, who's been pretty good for the Brumbies. You got Charlie Cale, who's an excellent player. I mean, for the Reds, you've got, I mean, Liam Wright. I mean, there's Langan Gleeson if you want to include him. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but I think he's a player that should be in the frame. If not, even like Tom Hooper, I think is another player who's been amazing. I mean, I would choose Tom Hooper right off the back, but I haven't gone with Tom Hooper and Langan Gleeson because they weren't included in the January camp. So I'm not sure how Joe Schmidt will kind of judge those players compared to the likes of Nolo Oseo and Leonard Catalis. That's the only reason, by the way, I haven't included them. If Joe Schmidt was very open now, kind of just saying, look, we're going to include all the players that we have, that are the best available, then I would definitely choose Tom Hooper and Leighton Gleeson off the bench. I think those two have to be in. I mean, I'd even put a case to have Tom Hooper in the starting lineup, to be fair, and then have like Darcy Swain and Jeremy Williams off the bench, kind of have a Brumbies starting duo, and then Western Force off the bench in terms of lock duo. So that would be something which I would do. But do I think Joe Schmidt will do that? I don't think so. So that's the reason why I've gone with the likes of Lachlan Saikai Loto off the bench, because again, he can fit in that sixth spot. He's very versatile. And then, yeah, of course, Carlos Lozano has to be in the squad somehow. So he is definitely the last four that I would choose off the bench. And then, yeah, for the kind of replacement 9, I would go with Jake Gordon. I would go with him ahead of like Nick White, even like Ryan Lonergan. I know Ryan Lonergan's had a pretty good campaign. I just think Jake Gordon is just really good off the bench. He's I can see him more as an impact player compared to the rest. So that's the reason why I've gone up in there. And then, yeah, to finish it off, I decided to go with Ben Donaldson ahead of Tom Liner, which is, again, no fault really towards Tom Liner because he's been pretty impressive so far throughout this year. I mean, again, he just kind of scored 2 tries against my Blues, so he's definitely in in my mind for kind of going into the squad for sure. I just think Ben Donaldson has the edge because he can play 15 and 10, so he's a bit more versatile in that sense. So that's really the only reason why I've come with him ahead of Tom Liner. But again, if they wanted to, they can kind of go Tom Liner. Then you can go with kind of replace Nolo Oseo. Then I don't know, you can replace someone off. I mean, you'll have to stick with like Tom Wright maybe in kind of that back three for the rest of the game, which I don't think is a problem. I just think you're kind of putting yourself in a big dilemma there because it's one of those where I don't know how do you even do it. Maybe like you shift you would have to shift like Nolo Oseo to the 12 because he's played there in the past. Put Tom Line at the 10, Lennon Catal at the 13, and then Joseph Swai maybe as the 15, and then switch one of the back three out if that's the way you have to do it. But I just think that's too complicated. So that's the reason why I've gone with Ben Donaldson as the last player off the bench. But yeah, guys, that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below what would your kind of 23-man squad be for the Wallabies, kind of for what you've seen so far. Do you agree that kind of, again, remember, this is what I believe Joe Schmidt will go with, not what I believe, because I think there's a few changes that I would do in terms of like bringing players from over shores, but I know that Joe Schmidt has been pretty kind of strange, saying, look, we're going to choose players within Australia for most cases. So I think that's the reason why this is what the squad will kind of look like. But anyway, guys, give it a like, give it a subscribe, guys. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.